Hey everyone, welcome to Pro Dealer Secrets. My name's Anthony, and today's video we're going to jump into a quick little topic. Why do cars seem so high at the auction? And I'm going to go over some of the reasons why. Of course it's not all exhaustive, it's not all of the reasons, but it's a good overview because I hear a lot of people say, oh, I just can't buy any cars. I go to the auction, all the prices are too high, this is ridiculous. How do people make any money? Blah blah blah. It's usually a bunch of complaining. And I never really hear anybody say, man, there's I got a good deal on this or that, or how are those guys going to stay in business? I usually just hear all the complaining, all the negativity. But we'll give you a rundown today and why it's a good thing that cars are hard to buy. In my experience, it makes it a bigger barrier to entry or success for people. So first, we'll go over the obvious reason. Buy here, pay here lots. They do most of the time make their own price. So they're just out there looking to buy, a really clean, good mileage vehicle that they know is going to last for a lot of the note. Now that's not true. Some buyer payers, they don't care what the car is or anything, but the successful ones, the ones that know what they're doing, the ones that can buy a lot of cars, they're looking for good, clean cars with good mileage, and they can set their own price. A lot of times it's 2.5, 3 times whatever they pay. So if they pay 5, they sell it for 15 or something like that. So they they're not really going off of a book or any type of cash value. They just have their own system. Secondly, most dealers, a lot of dealers are trying to sell their car for retail price or close to it. So the traditional model is buy for wholesale, ACV price. ACV is actual cash value, and then they sell it for retail. Now me and a lot of people that I work with, we are wholesale dealers, meaning we are selling these cars for wholesale price. ACV just means actual cash value. That means what somebody will actually pay cash, and we're not talking finance. ACV is cash value. Now let's jump in here to a vehicle that we purchased just a few days ago, and this is a good example of what I'm talking about. So this is an '08 Acura RDX all-wheel drive, good Carfax. Now I use Black Book, which is a cash value app. It has retail values, but I do not pay attention to the retail values typically. So here's what we're looking at. Most dealers, when they see this car, they're going to think to themselves, I can sell it for 67, 6,500, and if it has really low miles, like if it had 120,000 miles, they might be looking at this clean retail number. So they're looking to sell us from 65 to 8,000. Me, I am looking at the ACV loan value. So loan value is cash value, meaning that somebody is probably going to pay us 4,500 cash for this vehicle. Now in this case, I expect someone to pay 5,000 cash, which even 5,000 is close to the rough retail value. Now what it's actually closer to is a clean wholesale value, which is 4,700. So yeah, I expect this car to sell for 45 to 4,700. We're going to list it for 5,000 because it's just super clean. It is all-wheel drive and we're in the winter. So we can ask for 5,000 because we throw a free warranty in with it. But even 5,000 to me is stretching the price. Now to a typical dealership, the one that you see overpay for cars, they think 5,000 is absolute steal of a deal, and they're going to think they can get 65 out of it. Now if we actually do some market research, I'm willing to bet that most of these cars are listed for 6 to 7. I haven't researched this one because I know from my experience that when I sell this car for 5,000, it's just the nicest SUV for 45 to 5,000. Like I already know the market in terms of what it will compete against for all SUVs. I just don't know the RDXs specifically. So looks like there's actually none for sale, at least no 08s. So this is interesting. There's like no RDXs for sale in Tulsa. Now if we go to Oklahoma City, which is 2 miles away, There's a few. There's two. Okay. So this one, 111,000 miles, he is closer to the clean wholesale number. Now I'll just give you, let's just run the number just to see. What number is this guy looking at for 89.50? What is he thinking in terms of when he looks at his numbers? All right, so he is looking 89.50. He is almost at the average retail price. Now, if we look at the wholesale numbers, he is above clean wholesale. So my best case scenario, I'm selling that car is $700 to $7,800 because we're looking at wholesale values. We're not looking at retail. However, he's had it for 13 days, so it may sit for a while. Actually, this is a guy too that he buys a lot of the cars that I try to buy, but he is a buyer pay here. So, that's why he's going to have a higher price. Now, this one is a what is this? 07, very similar vehicle, close to the similar miles, and it's a little bit higher. 1 year older, but it's priced a little higher. So when we price ours for $5,000, it's just going to blow this competition out of the water. Now, we paid $3,700 for this one, got a good deal on it, so we're going to sell it for $5,000. And if it's an absolutely perfect car, we might even sell it for $55,000 looking at the market. But with the miles, I don't think it's worth that. I think it's worth $5,000, which is right along the lines of the clean wholesale number. So most dealers are trying to sell for retail, but we are trying to sell for wholesale. The third reason is banks will finance retail prices. They use these book value numbers to know what they should finance on this vehicle, what it's worth, and then they go up to a certain amount of finance. And especially on the cars that are desirable with lower miles, a lot of features, especially like your Toyotas, Hondas, stuff like that. That's why that's why they sell so high at the auction, because a lot of these dealers have banks that they will work with that will finance, a pretty high price for the customer. And when it comes to the inventory, you should only expect to buy less than 1% anyway, typically. I found that if the auction is running like 600 cars, you might buy 5 or less. If it's running like 1,000 cars, you might get 5 to 10. And a lot of these auctions that run like 2,500 cars, you're not going to get, a ton because there's so many. But just know that your job is to dig for the gold. Like, you're not just going to show up and just buy cars willy-nilly, because you have to avoid the cars that are too cheap and completely, messed up, need major work. But then you have to avoid the cars that are too high and you can't make money on. So you're digging for like 1 out of 100 cars. And for me, sometimes I get lucky and buy 15 or 20 at one auction, but typically I expect to buy like 3 to 5. And there's one auction I go to where I'll get like 10 or 15 a week. But just generally speaking, the more work and effort that you put into buying cars, the easier and faster you sell them. So it's one way or the other. You've got two choices in terms of effort. You can choose to spend more effort on your buying process, or you can choose to spend more effort on your selling process. It's much preferred to spend the effort on the buying, because selling is a result of good buying. If you buy a car, just like the Acura I showed you, we paid a great price. All we got to do when it gets here is inspect it and post it. And the selling is going to be easy. Somebody's going to show up and they're going to say they want to buy the car. And if it meets their expectations and they drive it, they're going to walk in and they're going to buy it. There's no hard sell, hard push, closing process. They're going to buy it if they like it. It's easy. However, if we don't pay attention to the buying process and we just focus on high pressure sales, getting more leads, get more people, this and that, yada, yada, you're not going to sell as many cars if you don't pay attention to your buying. If you think you can just show up, get some inventory without trying, or even if you have like a buying agent that just goes and they pay wholesale for all the cars, you're going to have trouble selling 50, 60 cars a month. That's just how it is. If buying was not difficult, then everybody would be good at it and nobody would have a competitive advantage. So for me, my buying process and the amount of work and effort I put into it, showing up an hour or two early to the auction and looking at all these cars, because I've had cars that they run through the auction red light, but I've checked them before, and I know that they're good, and I'm willing to pay more than anybody else that hasn't inspected that car. I bought an '08 E500 recently, Mercedes E500 V8, had 140,000 miles. I checked it before the auction, drove perfect. It went through the auction, and it was a red light. It scared all the other dealers because it's a Mercedes V8 red light. You know, what's wrong with it? I knew it was perfect, and this seller was just running it red light because it was a little bit too old. And, you know, I paid $2,800 for it. Every other dealer was scared to bid on it, but I paid 28, sold that thing for $6,000, and there's no way in hell I would have paid $3,000 if I had not checked the vehicle before. I knew it was solid. I knew it had no problems, and I made $3,000 as a result of spending an extra hour at the auction. Like, it's so easy. If you just put in a little time, go to the auction, check these cars, and then make a list, and you've got an immediate advantage because 90% of dealers do not show up and just check these cars. I mean, they'll show up a little early, but they will not like go through a list of cars that they think they want to buy. And lastly, you know, find the sweet spot in your local market. This is a price where people have a hard time finding a nice, solid, reliable car. For me, any car in my area that's $3,000 and under is typically junk, and cars that are $3,000 to $6,000 are typically overpriced junk, or the miles are too high. So for me, we choose to specialize in $3,000 to $6,000, good, solid, nice cars, reliable, good mileage, under 200,000 miles, newer than 15 years old, and most dealers sell the same cars that we sell for 1,000 plus more than we do. And as a result, we just sell a ton of cars in that price range. This is where I've found that most people are ready to buy. They're open to changing the car they want. You know, they'll look at multiple different cars, and when they find the car they like, they're ready to make a fast decision because they have experienced the fact that in this price range, if there's a great deal that pops up, it's going to sell fast. So they have an inbuilt sense of pressure that we don't have to give them. Like, they already know that if it's a good deal, it's going to sell fast. So that creates urgency in the customer. So that's today's video. Just a quick run through of, you know, why these cars are so high at the auction and what you can do about it. So till next time, this is Anthony with Pro Dealer Secrets, and I will see you on the next one.